The first thing to understand about this next chapter is this week rather, setting up the rest of the class. We've read the history of our community in North Slope through William Hensley. Now we're going to talk a little bit about, for a while, about the current, what's changing and what will affect us. This chapter of this week, or the title of this week rather, is called The Context of the North Slope. And what a context is it kind of means the environment in which it's happening, the rest of the story in which something is taking place. So we're going to be talking in depth about some of the specific challenges and assets. We're going to be talking about how things are changing. We're going to be getting deep into some of those subjects. But I want to talk on a broader scale about what is it that's affecting management in the North Slope. What macro events are happening that are affecting the culture in which we all work in and that the college takes place in. I don't have to tell anybody that Barrow is the northernmost town and that the North Slope Borough is the northernmost, you'd call it a county in the lower 48, and Borough in Alaska, in the whole country, and that matters. We live in what is considered by most people an environmentally, climatologically rather, severe place. We have darkness for 3 months, we have light for 3 months, we have, temperatures that reach well into the negative 50s, and that affects. And so nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing, we don't recruit for new people. We don't manage in a vacuum. One of the things that's really interesting up here on the North Slope is the amount of vacation time. When you get a job somewhere else in the lower 48, you generally start with 2 weeks. The most I've ever started with in any other organization was I had one that was 3 weeks. And their excuse for why they were doing 3 weeks instead of 2 is that because of the nature of the work they were doing, they couldn't always give people a vacation when they wanted it to, so they compensated it by giving them more. And, that was one of their selling points as an organization. They gave 3 weeks and everybody else only gave 2 weeks of vacation. Well, the North Slope Borough gives, I believe 6 weeks. The Ilisavik gives 7 weeks to begin with. It's just different. It's just different. Wonderful, but different. So these are the things we got to take place in. This context is usually things that we're just not going to be able to change, at least not on our own, and we have to take into account. The school district is a good example of it. The North Slope Borough School District, the most highly funded, with the highest paid teachers in the entire state. Because of that, because they just have more money than other districts, and other districts I've worked at in Alaska, they can do things others can't. Every school has its own football team. In the southeast, schools of those size don't. My entire district that I worked in Southeast Island School District down in Prince of Wales Island and those surrounding islands, wasn't a football team in the entire district. 76, it's a $64,000, I think it's up to $66,000 minimum salary. That was more than, mid-range teachers are making in a lot of those districts, including the one I worked in. So that's great. Kids travel a lot compared to what they do in other. There are things, every school has its swimming pool. There are opportunities available that just simply are not available anywhere else, really anywhere else in the state. And that's great. But, there are also challenges. The district has not been making, in general, though a few schools have, but the district and some of the schools in the district have not been making AYP, annual yearly progress. That also matters. The dropout rate is among the higher dropout rates. That matters. It's great if you have a school that does a wonderful job educating the kids, but if the kids don't stay in, that's going to affect the workforce from which you're drawing from. wages and prices, as I don't need to tell anybody, are higher up here than they will be anywhere else. I don't know of anywhere that I've ever lived where paying $10 for milk. I also know that jobs that I was getting paid $11, $12 an hour for other places start at $20, $21, $22, $23 up here. That matters. It makes, when you're recruiting from the lower 48, it can help you to do that. If it's your manager trying to bring in people for a specific skill, you can offer the most money. Nobody will generally offer more money than you do. But when it comes to retaining people, because when they're looking at a job, most people just look at what they're getting paid. They don't consider everything else. But they get up here and, they're paying $1,500, $1,800 for a 3-bedroom. They're paying $10 for milk and, $12 for a case of soda. And, they don't end up saving as much as they think. This matters. This changes the way people see the environment. And, simply can't be ignored. So another part of the context of the environment where we're in is turnover tends to be fairly significant, a lot higher than it is in other places. People feel free jumping from Milosevic to the borough, to ASRC, to the district. And so if you do not take care of your employees, if you're a hard person or a hard place to work for, you won't retain good people. There are other places like, Idaho, for example, where my in-laws live, where there is so few jobs that people are pretty thrilled to have the job that they have, and you don't see that kind of same jumping. And so you can, in an environment like Idaho, ride your employees a little harder, and be a worse manager and yet still be successful. In Barrow, because there are so many great jobs, there are so many good companies, it's easy to jump. You have a harder time retaining your employees. It's also understand who's setting the context, who's setting the rules by which a community operates. And in our community, that's the North Slope Borough. They're so big, they employ so many people, they are the municipality, they do so many things that everybody else follows their lead. They can't tell ASRC how to run their business. They can't tell Milosevic, how to do it, and then North Slope Borough how to do what they do. But they are the 800-pound gorilla. For whether that's good or bad can be debated, but they are. And everybody who works and manages has to do so within that context. Okay? Context in terms of culture. The best numbers I could find said that between 61 and 63% of the people on the North Slope are native. That about another 20% are white, about 10% are Asian, and then the rest of the 10% is filled in from other groups. That, Pacific Islander being the largest of those groups. That affects, when the most of the people, if you are selling something or providing a service to, will be native. It's just mathematically true. Most of the people you're hiring will be native. Probably most of the people taking this class are native. Okay, and we all see the world differently. I have 2 boys that are Yupik Eskimo that are my boys, have been my boys since they were 13 and 15, and they live in 2 worlds, and they're probably better to speak to it than me, but having lived in one world and then having lived in my world, I can live in Bethel, I can live in Barrow, but I'll never see the world quite in the same way. Okay, my expectations, the way I think things are supposed to be, things are going to be, are just never going to be the same. Okay? I mean, we talk about culture, and we have festivals, and we have foods, and we have traditions, and all of those are relevant and all of those are important. But in terms of a culture and management class, the part of that matters so significantly is expectations. Cultural expectation. How do people expect to be treated? How do people expect to be managed? And how do people expect to be supervised? And that's in which we'll go in more in following lectures. But that's what we talk about when we talk about culture.